Life can change in an instant. For Jack Foster, that instant came on an ordinary Tuesday morning. A construction worker and single father barely making ends meet. He was walking to his job site when he saw her. A small figure perched precariously on a crumbling ledge, 6 stories up. Without hesitation, he dropped his lunchbox and ran. What happened next would be captured on dozens of phones, shared millions of times, and changed 2 families forever. The girl was alive, but that was just the beginning, because this wasn't just any child. This was Emily Blackwood, the missing daughter of tech billionaire Robert Blackwood, who had been searching for her for the past 3 years. Could a simple act of bravery bridge the gap between 2 vastly different worlds? Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from. And if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra, special for you. The alarm blared at 5:15 a.m., same as every morning. Jack Foster's calloused hand reached out to silence it before the sound could wake Tommy. Their 1-bedroom apartment wasn't big enough for noise to stay contained, and his son needed every minute of sleep he could get. Jack sat on the edge of his fold-out couch, running a hand through his graying hair. At 38, he felt every one of his years in his bones, especially on cold mornings like this. The springs creaked as he stood, carefully navigating around Tommy's astronomy projects spread across their living room floor. The boy had been obsessed with stars ever since Sarah passed. In the bathroom, Jack pulled his worn leather wallet from yesterday's jeans. It was thin, always thin these days, but it wasn't the lack of money that made him pause. It was the photo tucked behind his driver's license. Sarah's smile, bright and eternal, Tommy on her lap at his 4th birthday party. 5 years ago now. The edges of the picture were frayed, but he couldn't bring himself to laminate it. Something about the worn softness of the paper made it feel more real, more alive. "Dad?" Tommy's voice drifted from the living room. "Is it pancake day?" Jack tucked the wallet into his pocket. "Sorry, buddy. End of the month. We're on cereal duty." He didn't need to see Tommy's face to know the slight fall in his shoulders, the quick recovery. His son had grown too used to disappointments, had learned too young how to hide them. "That's okay," Tommy called back. "I like cereal." The kitchen was small but organized. Everything had to be when space was tight. Jack pulled out their last box of generic brand cornflakes, making a mental note to stretch his next paycheck further. Construction work paid decent wages when the jobs were steady, but winter was coming, and contracts always got scarce with the cold. Tommy appeared in the doorway, already dressed in his school uniform. At 9, he was all elbows and knees, growing, too fast for their budget to keep up. The navy blue blazer was a hand-me-down from the church donation bin, slightly too big in the shoulders. But Tommy wore it with pride, had learned to roll the sleeves just so. "Quiz today?" Jack asked, pouring milk that was probably closer to its expiration date than he'd like. "Science." Tommy slid onto their single kitchen stool. "About the solar system. I studied all week." Jack smiled, remembering the star charts Tommy had drawn, the way he'd recited planet facts while they walked to school. "You're going to ace it, kiddo." They ate in comfortable silence, the kind that forms between 2 people who know each other's rhythms by heart. Outside their window, the city was waking up, traffic growing steadily louder, the smell of the Korean restaurant downstairs beginning its daily parade of aromas. "Dad?" Tommy's spoon clinked against his bowl. "Ms. Rodriguez says there's a field trip next month to the planetarium." Jack felt the familiar tightness in his chest. Field trips meant permission slips. Permission slips meant fees. "How much?" $30. Tommy's voice was careful, measured. "But she said they have some scholarships. I could apply." Pride and practicality warred in Jack's gut. He hated the word scholarship when it applied to his son. Hated that Tommy had to think about money at an age when his biggest worry should be memorizing constellations. But pride didn't pay bills. "That sounds like a good idea, buddy. Miss Rodriguez is looking out for you." Tommy nodded, relief visible in the loosening of his shoulders. Jack watched him finish his cereal, wondered for the thousandth time if he was doing right by his boy. Sarah would know. Sarah always knew how to balance dreams and reality. The rest of their morning routine played out like clockwork. Dishes in the sink, teeth brushed, Tommy's backpack checked twice for homework. Jack grabbed his hard hat and lunchbox, peanut butter sandwich, apple from the discount bin, water bottle he'd refill at the site. Everything measured, counted, stretched to last. At the door, Tommy hugged him tight, face pressed against Jack's. Worn work jacket. Love you, Dad. Love you too, astronaut. Jack squeezed back, breathing in the scent of drugstore shampoo and childhood. Make those planets proud today. He watched Tommy join the stream of uniformed children heading toward St. Michael's Elementary, his son's second-hand blazer disappearing into a sea of identical navy blue. Then he turned toward his own day, toward the construction site 20 blocks north, where they were renovating an old office building into luxury condos. Another day of building beautiful things he'd never be able to afford. The wallet in his pocket felt heavy with more than just Sarah's photo. It carried unpaid electric bills, a reminder for Tommy's upcoming dental checkup, and exactly $4 in cash. But it also held his construction site ID, his union card, proof that he could work, could provide something, even if it wasn't everything he wished he could give. Jack adjusted his hard hat and started walking. It was going to be a long day. Jack was 3 blocks from the construction site when he heard the first scream. His head snapped up, construction workers' instincts kicking in. Years on job sites had taught him the difference between sounds that meant trouble and sounds that meant disaster. This one raised every alarm. Then he saw her. 6 stories up on the old riverside building, a small figure in a red dress teetered on the decorative ledge that ran along the building's facade. Her dark hair whipped in the wind, and even from the ground, Jack could see she was trembling. A torn purple backpack dangled from one hand, straps ripped and contents spilling. Oh my God, there's a child up there. A woman's voice cut through the growing crowd. Jack's mind raced through the building's layout. He'd done repair work there last summer. The ledge was part of the original architecture, more for show than support. Victorian era, limestone over. Brick core, deteriorating. Someone call 911. But Jack was already moving. The girl shifted, and a piece of limestone crumbled away beneath her feet. His heart stopped as she wobbled, steadied, wobbled again. The service entrance was around back. Locked, but the mechanism was old. Jack slammed his shoulder against it once, twice, felt it give. Inside, stale air and darkness. Emergency lights cast sickly shadows across worn stairs. "Hey!" a security guard's voice echoed. "You can't! There's a kid on the ledge!" Jack was already taking the stairs 2 at a time, his construction site fitness serving him now. 6th floor! Behind him, he heard the guard's radio crackle to life, reporting the situation. But Jack couldn't wait for official help. The limestone was crumbling. He'd seen it himself. That ledge wouldn't hold much longer. 4th floor. 5th. His lungs burned. The 6th floor hallway was a maze of abandoned offices. Jack oriented himself. The girl had been on the west side. He burst through a door into what had once been an accounting firm, now just empty cubicles and dust. And there she was, through the window, 10 feet to his left, the little girl in the red dress. Up close, he could see she was young, maybe Tommy's age. Tears streaked her face. Jack moved slowly to the window, testing its latch. Locked. Without hesitation, he grabbed a desk chair and smashed the glass. "Hey there!" He kept his voice gentle, like talking to Tommy after a nightmare. "I'm Jack. I'm here to help." The girl's head turned slightly, but she didn't move from her precarious position. Her knuckles were white where they gripped the buildings. "Stone! Don't come closer!" Her voice was barely a whisper. "They said they'd hurt me if I didn't." Another piece of ledge crumbled. Jack's heart clenched as she swayed. "I won't come closer," he promised, though everything in him screamed to grab her. "But I want you to look at me, just at me. Can you do that?" Slowly, so slowly, She turned her head. Her eyes were deep brown, filled with terror. Good. That's good. Jack inched forward, staying low. What's your name, sweetheart? I can't tell. That's okay. You don't have to tell me anything, but I need you to trust me for just a minute. Can you hear the ledge cracking? She nodded, tears falling faster. It's not going to hold much longer, but I can help. I work on buildings like this. I know exactly how strong I am, and exactly how strong that ledge isn't. Another piece fell. Please, let me help you. The girl looked down at the gathering crowd, then back at Jack. Something in his face must have reached her, because she gave a tiny nod. Okay, don't move. I'm coming to you. Jack eased onto the ledge. Old construction methods, he reminded himself. Limestone facade over brick core. Find the solid parts. His work boots gripped the stone as he spread his weight carefully. 3 feet. Away. 2 feet. The ledge groaned. When I count to 3, I want you to jump toward me. Just a tiny jump. I'll catch you. Do you understand? Another nod. 1. Her backpack slipped from her fingers, tumbling to the street below. 2. The ledge shifted ominously. 3. She jumped. Jack lunged. His hand caught her arm as the ledge gave way completely, raining limestone chunks onto the crowd below. For one heart-stopping moment, they both hung suspended, Jack's other hand white-knuckled on the window frame. Then, with a grunt of effort, he swung her through the broken window. To safety, they collapsed onto the dusty office floor as sirens wailed in the distance. The girl buried her face in his shirt, sobbing. Jack held her, his own heart thundering. She was alive. She was safe. He had no way of knowing that this was only the beginning. The paramedics insisted on checking them both out, though Jack kept saying he was fine. The girl hadn't spoken since they'd made it inside, just clung to his hand with a grip that betrayed her terror. She wouldn't let the EMTs near her until Jack promised he wouldn't leave. "Sir!" A reporter thrust a microphone toward his face. "How? Did you know the ledge was about to collapse?" Another pushed forward. "What made you risk your life for a stranger?" Camera flashes burst like lightning. Jack shifted to shield the girl from their glare, but the damage was done. The story was already spreading, phones raised everywhere he looked. He could see the headlines forming, "Construction Workers' Heroic Rescue." His foreman, Mike, shouldered through the crowd. "Foster, you okay?" "Yeah, I'm Mr. Foster." More reporters, more cameras. "Did you have any safety training for this kind of situation?" A police officer appeared, notepad in hand. "Sir, we need your statement." The girl's grip tightened. "Look," Jack addressed them all, "can we do this later? She's scared, and I need to call my son's school. They'll be expecting me to pick him up." The mention of Tommy shot through him like electricity. What time was it? How many hours had passed since the rescue? He fumbled for his phone. 3. Missed calls from St. Michael's. A police detective stepped forward, her badge reading Martinez. She had kind eyes behind her professional demeanor. "Mr. Foster, we can send someone to pick up your son. Right now, we need to talk about what happened here and about her." She nodded toward the girl, who had pressed herself closer to Jack's side. The local news van had arrived. Jack caught sight of the headline scrolling across their side screen. "Local hero saves child in dramatic rescue." His stomach churned. He'd never wanted attention, had spent years perfecting the art of keeping his head down and doing his job. "Dad!" Tommy's voice cut through the chaos. Jack turned to see his son pushing through the crowd, Ms. Rodriguez right behind him. The teacher's face was flushed from rushing. "I saw it on the news at school," Tommy burst out. "You saved her. You're a hero." The girl finally stirred at Tommy's, a voice lifting her head slightly. "Mr. Foster," Detective Martinez interrupted gently, "we need to take her statement, and there's something you should know." But Tommy was already talking again, his words tumbling out with excitement. "It's all over YouTube. Everyone's phones were showing it during lunch. Carlos said his mom saw it on Twitter and—" "Tommy," Jack cut in, recognizing the growing anxiety. In the girl's posture. "Buddy, can you wait with Ms. Rodriguez for a minute? I need to talk to the detective." Martinez led them to a quiet corner of the medical tent that had been set up. The girl still wouldn't let go of Jack's hand. "We found her backpack," Martinez said quietly. "The contents, well, they've helped us identify her." She paused, choosing her words carefully. "Mr. Foster, do you follow business news?" Jack almost laughed. "My idea of business news is checking if we've got enough in the account for groceries." "Then you wouldn't recognize the name Robert Blackwood?" Something tugged at his memory. A newspaper headline glimpsed on someone's tablet at the construction site. Something about a tech company and a family tragedy. "Should I?" "He's the CEO of Blackwood Technologies. 3 years ago, his daughter disappeared. There was a massive manhunt, rewards offered, but the trail went cold." Martinez looked at the girl, who had started trembling again. "Until today." Jack felt the world tilt beneath his feet. The detective's words seemed to come from very far away as she explained about ransoms never paid, leads that led nowhere, a billionaire father who had nearly broken himself searching. "Her name is Emily," Martinez said softly. "And you didn't. Just save her from a falling ledge, Mr. Foster. You may have just solved one of the biggest kidnapping cases in recent history." Through the tent's opening, Jack could see the media crowd growing larger. More vans, more cameras. Tommy was watching wide-eyed as Ms. Rodriguez spoke with a uniformed officer. Emily's hand tightened around his own, and Jack knew with sudden clarity that his ordinary life had just become anything but. Detective Martinez handed Jack a laminated flyer worn at the edges from years of handling. Emily's face smiled up at him, younger but unmistakable. "Missing," the text proclaimed in bold red letters. "Emily Grace Blackwood, age 6. Below was a phone number and a reward amount that made Jack's head spin. "The FBI's been notified," Martinez explained. "They're en route. Mr. Blackwood is already in the air." Jack looked at Emily, still pressed against his side. 3 years. She'd been held captive for 3 years while her father searched, while the world slowly forgot, while she grew from the smiling 6-year-old in the photo to this silent, terrified 9-year-old. "The people who took her," Jack said quietly. "They're still out there?" Martinez nodded grimly. "Which is why we need to move you both to a secure location. Now!" A commotion erupted outside the tent. Jack heard raised voices, the clicking of cameras, urgent footsteps. Then the tent flap burst open and Robert Blackwood entered like a storm. He was younger than Jack expected, maybe early 40s, but grief had carved deep lines around his eyes. His suit probably cost more than Jack made in a month, but it hung slightly loose, as if he'd lost weight it had been tailored for. His eyes locked onto Emily, and everything else about him, the power, the wealth, the carefully maintained control, crumbled. "Emmy." His voice broke on the name. Emily's grip on Jack's hand tightened painfully. She pressed her face into his work shirt, trembling. "She's been through a lot," Jack said softly. "Maybe take it slow." Blackwood seemed to notice him for the first time. Recognition flickered across his face. He'd obviously been briefed. The billionaire took a deep breath, visibly pulling himself together. "Mr. Foster." Blackwood's voice was steadier now. There aren't words. There don't need to be." Jack tried to shift away, to give father and daughter space, but Emily wouldn't let go. "Emily, your dad's here. You're safe now." She shook her head against his shirt. "Don't leave." Blackwood's face twisted with pain, but he kept his distance, respecting his daughter's fear. A woman in a sharp suit entered the tent behind him, some kind of assistant or lawyer, Jack guessed. "Sir," she said quietly, "the DNA results are back." Jack felt Emily stiffen. Blackwood took the offered tablet, his hands shaking slightly as he read. Then he closed his eyes, tears tracking down his face. "It's her," he whispered. "It's really her." The next hour passed in a blur. FBI agents arrived, their questions precise and endless. Emily wouldn't speak to anyone but Jack, so he found himself acting as a buffer between her and the authorities. He learned that she'd been kept in a basement somewhere, that she'd overheard her captors planning to move her. She'd managed to slip away during the transfer, but they'd chased her into the Riverside building. The backpack, she whispered when they asked about it. They made me carry things, papers. I took them when I ran. The FBI's interest sharpened at that. The torn backpack had become evidence, its contents potentially crucial to the investigation. Through it all, Tommy watched from a corner of the tent, wide-eyed but quiet. Ms. Rodriguez had called Jack's sister to pick him up, but Tommy had refused to leave. Jack caught him staring at Emily with a mix of curiosity and concern. Mr. Foster, Blackwood's assistant, approached with yet another form. We need to discuss security arrangements. Until the kidnappers are apprehended, you and your son could be at risk. Mr. Blackwood wants to provide protection. Jack looked at Tommy, at Emily still clinging to his hand, at the media circus visible through the tent's opening. His simple life of construction work and quiet evenings helping with homework seemed very far away. The missing person flyer lay on a nearby table, Emily's younger face a reminder of all the time stolen from her. 3 years of fear and darkness, while he and Tommy had gone about their lives just blocks away. If he'd known, if he'd seen her face somewhere. Dad, Tommy's voice was small. Are we in danger? Before Jack could answer, Emily spoke. Her voice was barely a whisper, but in the tense, hushed atmosphere everyone heard. I won't let them hurt you. She looked up at Jack, then at Tommy. You saved me. I won't let them hurt you because of me. Robert Blackwood made a sound like he'd been struck. It was the first words his daughter had spoken to anyone but Jack. The assistant cleared her throat. Mr. Foster, about the security arrangements. Jack squared his shoulders. His life had changed the moment he'd seen Emily on that ledge. Now it was time to face what that really meant. Whatever keeps them safe, he said, both of them. The Blackwood Technologies corporate office occupied the top 10 floors of a gleaming downtown tower. Jack felt out of place the moment he stepped through the revolving doors, his work boots leaving scuff marks on the pristine marble floor. Tommy walked beside him, wide-eyed at the luxury surrounding them, his hand occasionally brushing the tie Jack had borrowed from his sister's husband. Mr. Foster, a sleek security desk staffed by men who moved like ex-military. Mr. Blackwood is expecting you, 15th floor. The elevator rode smoother than any Jack had ever experienced, even on the construction sites of high-end buildings. Tommy pressed his face to the glass wall, watching the city shrink beneath them. Dad, look, you can see our apartment from here. Jack followed his son's pointing finger to their familiar neighborhood, looking small and grey from this height. Was it only yesterday they'd walked those streets anonymously? The elevator doors opened to a reception area larger than their entire apartment. Robert Blackwood stood waiting, his suit impeccable, but his face showing the strain of sleepless nights. Emily was nowhere in sight. Jack, Blackwood stepped forward, offering his hand. Thank you for coming, and this must be Tommy. Tommy straightened, trying to match the formality of their surroundings. It's nice to meet you, sir. Emily's been asking about you, Blackwood said, his voice softening. She's with her therapist right now, but perhaps later. He gestured them into his office, a corner space with floor-to-ceiling windows. A child's drawing sat framed on his desk. New, Jack noticed. Emily's first artwork since her return. Please sit. Blackwood pulled something from his pocket. A business card, thick cream-colored stock with embossed lettering. But when he handed it to Jack, there was a handwritten note on the back. For giving me back my world. I know you've refused the reward, Blackwood began. I didn't do it for money. No. Blackwood smiled slightly. That's exactly why you deserve it. But this isn't about reward money. This is about safety. He pressed a button, and a holographic display sprang to life between them. Security footage appeared, showing men in dark clothes studying the exterior of Jack's apartment building. They were there last night, Blackwood said quietly. My security team intercepted them before they could get inside. Tommy's hand found Jack's, squeezing tight. The FBI has leads, Blackwood continued, but these people are well connected. They've managed to stay hidden for 3 years, and now they're desperate. Because Emily took something from them, Jack remembered. Papers. In the backpack, Blackwood nodded. Evidence of something bigger than a single kidnapping. The FBI is being circumspect with details, but it's clear Emily's captors were part of something larger. And they know she might have seen things, heard things. They won't stop, Jack concluded. No, which is why I'm offering you and Tommy a place in our secure compound. Private schooling, round-the-clock protection. We can't accept that. Dad, Tommy whispered, but Jack pressed on. Mr. Blackwood, Robert, please. Robert, I appreciate everything you're trying to do, but we can't just abandon our lives. Tommy's school, my job, your job. Blackwood's laugh held no humor. Jack, you haven't been to work since the rescue. There are reporters camped outside your construction site. Your face is on every news channel. As if to emphasize his point, a muted TV on the wall showed footage of the rescue, Jack's figure climbing onto the ledge. The world knows you now, Blackwood continued, and so do they. You can't go back to anonymity, not yet. Maybe not ever. Tommy's grip tightened. Dad, I'm scared. The words hit Jack like a physical blow. He looked at his son, really looked at him. The borrowed tie couldn't hide the fear in his eyes, the way he kept glancing at the security footage, still playing silently between them. Blackwood reached into his desk and withdrew a folder. I had my team draw up some options. Safe houses, security details, new identities if necessary. Whatever you choose, I'll make it happen, but please. His voice cracked slightly. Emily trusts you. You're the only one she really talks to. And Tommy, she lights up around him. After 3 years in darkness, my daughter is finally starting to feel safe again. I can't. He stopped, composing himself. Jack noticed the business card trembling slightly in his own hands, the handwritten note blurring as he considered their options. A gentle knock interrupted them. The door opened, and Emily peered in, her therapist hovering behind her. When she saw Tommy, a small smile broke through her usual guardedness. Can Tommy come see my new books?" she asked softly. The two fathers watched their children gravitate toward each other, and Jack knew his decision was already made. He looked down at the business card one last time, then tucked it carefully into his wallet. "Tell me about these options," he said. The letter arrived on a Thursday morning, slipped under Jack's apartment door sometime before dawn. No envelope, just a single sheet of expensive paper folded in thirds. The security team Blackwood had posted outside missed whoever delivered. "Back off," it read in crisp computer-printed letters. "The girl saw nothing. The boy doesn't have to see anything either." Jack's hands shook as he read it again. The threat to Tommy was clear, wrapped in carefully crafted deniability. He'd been wrestling with Blackwood's offer for days, trying to maintain some semblance of their normal life. Now that illusion of choice evaporated like morning dew. His phone buzzed. "Detective Martinez, they're getting bolder," she said without preamble. "We found evidence of surveillance at Tommy's school, professional-grade equipment." Jack watched through his window as parents dropped their children off at St. Michael's across the street. How many innocent kids were at risk because he'd tried to hold on to normalcy? "The FBI's analyzing the letter now," Martinez continued. "But Mr. Foster, Jack, you need to consider—" "I know." He pressed his forehead against the cool glass. Blackwood's safe house. Tommy emerged from his bedroom, school uniform pristine, astronaut lunchbox in hand. He'd been so brave through all of this, but Jack could see the strain in the way his son's eyes constantly darted to windows and doorways. "Dad?" Tommy paused, taking in Jack's expression. "Is it time?" Before Jack could answer, his phone chimed, with a text from his foreman. "Sorry, Jack, can't keep your position open with all this heat. Media's still camped out. Best of luck. Perfect timing. Another piece of normal life slipping away." "Yeah, buddy." Jack tried to keep his voice steady. "I think it's time." They packed quickly. Clothes, Tommy's astronomy books, the few photos they had of Sarah. Everything else could be replaced. Jack left his hard hat hanging by the door, a silent goodbye to the life they were leaving behind. Blackwood's security team materialized as they exited the building, smoothly guiding them into an armored SUV with tinted windows. As they pulled away, Jack caught a glimpse of unfamiliar men watching from a parked car across the street. His skin crawled, remembering the letter's words. "Mr. Foster." The security chief, Anderson, handed back a tablet. These were taken at different locations over the past week. The photos showed the same men, different vehicles, but always watching. Outside the apartment near Tommy's school, following their regular routes. "They've been tracking your patterns," Anderson explained. "Testing our responses. The letter was their way of saying they could get to you any time." Tommy pressed closer to Jack's side, trying to peer at the tablet. Jack quickly turned it off. "How did they get past your team?" "They're well funded." Anderson's jaw tightened. "Military training, based on their movements. This isn't some random criminal organization." The SUV wound through the city, taking an indirect route to Blackwood's compound. Jack thought about the papers Emily had stolen, the ones that had the FBI working overtime. What kind of operation could sustain a 3-year kidnapping? Deploy professional surveillance teams and still remain hidden? His phone buzzed again. A news alert. His stomach dropped as he read the headline. "Hero construction worker linked to Blackwood kidnapping case. What is he hiding?" "They're trying to control the narrative," Anderson said grimly. "Paint you as involved rather than a rescuer. Classic disinformation tactic." Tommy's hand slipped into Jack's. "Dad, are we ever going back home?" The letter crinkled in Jack's pocket, its threat echoing in his mind. How do you explain to a 9-year-old that safety means leaving everything behind? "Home is where we're together, buddy." Jack squeezed his son's hand. "Everything else is just walls." The SUV turned onto a private road, approaching gates that looked like they could withstand a tank assault. Beyond them, Jack caught his first glimpse of the Blackwood compound, a fortress disguised as a mansion. Emily stood on the front steps, with her father, waiting. When she saw Tommy, she smiled, a small, fragile thing, but real. Maybe they weren't just running from something. Maybe they were also running to something. The letter's weight seemed to grow heavier in Jack's pocket, a paper reminder that their ordinary life was over. But watching Tommy wave to Emily, seeing hope pierce through her usual fear, Jack knew they were where they needed to be. Sometimes safety meant letting go of everything you thought you needed to hold on to. The security invoice lay on Jack's new desk, its details reading like science fiction. Biometric scanners, thermal imaging cameras, ground-penetrating radar. The cost of just one component could have paid their old apartment's rent for a year. At the bottom, Robert had scrawled, "For my peace of mind, not your debt." Jack set it aside and watched through the bulletproof window as Tommy and Emily explored the garden. 2 security teams maintained discreet positions while the children crouched near a flower bed, Emily showing Tommy how to plant tulip bulbs. It was the most animated he'd seen her since the rescue. "They're good for each other," Robert said from the doorway. Jack turned to find the billionaire looking more relaxed than he had in days, his tie loosened, sleeves rolled up. The fortress-like security of the compound seemed to have eased some of his constant tension. "She's teaching him about flowers," Jack said. "He's teaching her about stars. Last night they made a telescope out of paper towel rolls. I heard them laughing." Robert's voice caught slightly. "Actually laughing. Do you know how long it's been since—" He trailed off, but Jack understood. The compound might feel like a prison sometimes, but it was also becoming something else, a place of healing. The living quarters they'd been given were larger than their entire old apartment building. Tommy had a room with a ceiling painted to match the night sky, complete with scientifically accurate constellations. Jack's room had a window seat overlooking the garden, though he spent most nights checking the security feeds Anderson had given him access to. "The new tutor starts Monday," Robert said. "She's cleared the highest security checks, and she has experience with trauma cases." Jack nodded. They'd pulled Tommy from St. Michael's after the surveillance discovery. The thought of his son missing his friends and teachers still ached, but the security footage Anderson had shown them left no room for doubt. The threat was real. A chime sounded throughout the compound. Shift change for the security teams. Jack watched the seamless rotation, remembering the installation process from last week. Teams of specialists had worked around the clock, integrating cutting-edge technology with the mansion's historic architecture. The invoice listed each system: motion sensors hidden in Victorian moldings, facial recognition cameras disguised as vintage light fixtures, reinforced panic rooms behind antique wooden panels. "Have the FBI made any progress?" Jack asked. Robert's expression darkened. "The papers Emily took, they're encrypted, but what they've decoded so far suggests this goes deeper than we imagined. Government connections, international accounts. That's why they're so desperate to get to her." "Yes, and to discredit anyone who might protect her." Robert gestured to a tablet showing the latest news headlines. Jack's face appeared in several, the stories increasingly sinister in their implications. Outside, Tommy had retrieved his makeshift telescope, showing Emily how to aim it at the afternoon sun through a pinhole filter they'd made. Her face lit up with genuine curiosity, another small victory in her gradual return to childhood. "The media team is working on counteracting the negative press," Robert continued, "but these people are professionals at manipulation. They've started suggesting I'm paying you to maintain some kind of cover story." Jack remembered the letter, now sealed in an FBI evidence bag. "Let them talk. Emily's safe. That's what matters." A subtle shift in the security pattern caught his attention. Anderson approaching the children with controlled urgency. Jack tensed, but it was only a garden snake that had startled Emily. They watched as Tommy helped the security chief carefully relocate it, turning the moment into an impromptu science lesson. "You're good at this," Robert said quietly. "At what?" "Living under siege without letting it break you. Teaching them to do the same." Jack thought of Sarah, how she'd faced her illness with grace, teaching Tommy to find wonder even in hospital. "Rooms. They take their cues from us. If we treat it like a prison, it becomes one." Robert studied the invoice on Jack's desk, the list of defenses they hoped would never be tested. "When I built all this, it was about keeping dangers out. I never thought it could become a place where she'd learn to feel safe again." Through the window, Emily's laugh drifted up, a sound that made all the fortifications and cameras and guards worth every penny. She and Tommy were drawing in the dirt with sticks, planning where to plant more bulbs. In the distance, the perimeter sensors hummed their constant vigilance, invisible guardians of this strange new normal they were. Building one careful day at a time, the drawing appeared on Jack's desk one morning, a crayon masterpiece on oversized paper, two houses side by side, one a familiar sketch of their old apartment building, the other unmistakably the Blackwood compound. Between them, four stick figures held hands, too tall, too small. Above it all, a huge yellow sun and carefully drawn stars. "We made it together," Tommy explained from the doorway, Emily half hidden behind him. "See? That's our constellation." Jack studied the cluster of stars they'd drawn. It didn't match any traditional pattern he recognized from Tommy's astronomy books. "We invented it," Emily said softly. "Tommy says you can do that, make new shapes in the stars." "The ancient Greeks did it all the time," Tommy added with authority. "They made whole stories in the sky." "And what's the story of this one?" Jack asked. The children exchanged glances. Emily nodded and Tommy stepped forward. "It's the Guardian," he said, "because that's what you and Mr. Blackwood are, like the stars watching over everything." Emily moved to stand beside Tommy, her confidence growing. "Dad says you saved me because you're brave, but Tommy says it's because you're a dad." Maybe it's both, Jack said, his throat tight. The drawing captured something he hadn't fully acknowledged, how their two families had begun to orbit each other, forming their own constellation of sorts. The children spent their days learning. Together, Emily excelling at art and languages, Tommy sharing his passion for science. Their laughter echoed through halls that had known only silence since Emily's kidnapping. Robert had changed, too. Jack often found him in the garden now, jacket off, helping the children with their growing collection of plants. Sometimes he caught the billionaire simply watching them play, as if storing up these moments against the darkness that had come before. "Jack?" Emily's voice pulled him back to the present. "Can I ask you something?" "Of course." She twisted the hem of her shirt, a nervous habit she hadn't yet shed. "Tommy told me about his mom, about her being in heaven." She paused, gathering courage. "When I was away, I used to pretend my mum was watching over me too, like a star." Jack's heart ached. Emily's mother had died when she was 3, cancer, like Sarah. It was another thread connecting their fractured families. "I bet she was," he said gently. "Tommy says you keep his mom's picture in your wallet, that it helps him remember her." Smile. Emily's eyes met his, vulnerable but determined. "Do you think, could you help me remember my mum too? Dad has pictures, but he gets sad when I ask." Before Jack could respond, Robert's voice came from the hallway. "I have albums." They turned to find him in the doorway, holding a leather-bound book. I didn't want to push." Emily crossed to her father, took his hand. "Could we look at them? All of us?" They gathered in the library. Emily curled against her father's, sighed. Tommy leaning on Jack's arm, the album open across their laps. Robert's voice grew steadier as he shared stories of Emily's mother, her love of gardening, her terrible cooking attempts, her laugh that filled rooms. "She used to sing you to sleep," Robert said, touching a photo of mother and daughter at a piano. "This French lullaby, Au clair de la lune," Emily whispered, then looked startled at her own memory. "Yes." Robert's eyes glistened. "Every night." Tommy pointed to another photo. "She has eyes like Emily." She did. Robert smiled. "And the same talent for art. She would have loved your drawing." Jack watched Emily absorb these pieces of her past, saw her shoulders relax as memories were reclaimed from the shadows. Tommy asked questions about the photos, his natural curiosity helping bridge difficult moments. The children's drawing sat on a nearby table, its simple lines capturing a truth the adults had been slower to recognize. They were becoming something more than 2 separate families sharing a safe haven. The constellation they'd invented, the Guardian, seemed to watch over them all as they turned pages, shared stories, rebuilt connections that loss had broken. Later, after the children had gone to bed, Jack found Robert still in the library, staring at the drawing. "Emily's mother," Robert said without looking up. "She believed everything happened for a reason. I lost that belief when we lost Emily, but now I wonder if she was right. If all this pain and fear led us here for a purpose, not just Emily's rescue, but..." He gestured to the drawing, to the stick figures holding hands between 2 houses. "This, whatever this is becoming." Jack thought of Sarah, how she'd always said family was something you could keep building, even through loss. The kids see it. Clearly, maybe we should follow their lead. Robert nodded, touching the crayon stars. "A new constellation, one no one's ever seen before." Outside, the real stars wheeled above the compound's sophisticated defenses, ancient light, watching over modern fortifications. Inside, 2 broken families continued their careful work of becoming whole again, guided by children's wisdom and the love of mothers watching from above. The contract sat heavy in Jack's hands, 20 pages of legal language that boiled down to one stunning fact. Robert wanted to make him head of physical security for Blackwood Technologies. "I don't understand," Jack said, flipping through. Clauses about salary, benefits, and stock options that made his construction wages look like pocket change. You have, Anderson, whole teams of security experts who think like security experts. Robert leaned against his desk, tie loosened after a long day of board meetings. You think like a builder. You understand how things work from the ground up. That ledge, you knew it would collapse because you understood its construction. That was just experience. Exactly. Experience I need. Robert tapped the contract. We're expanding globally. New facilities, new vulnerabilities. I need someone who sees buildings the way you do, not just as security challenges, but as living structures. Jack set the contract down, mind spinning. The salary alone could put Tommy through college, could secure their future in ways he'd never imagined possible. But I'm a construction worker, Robert. I've never managed corporate security. No, you're a father who will do anything to protect his child, who already did the impossible to protect mine. Robert's voice softened. The teams respect you, Jack. They've seen how you think, how you spot weaknesses in our procedures. Anderson's been singing your praises since you pointed out the blind spot in the garden surveillance. Through the window, Jack could see Tommy and Emily with their tutor in the garden classroom they'd created. Emily was drawing something, while Tommy gestured enthusiastically at a science textbook. Both children looked relaxed at home. There's another reason, Robert continued. The FBI's investigation is moving forward. The papers Emily took, they're uncovering connections to construction projects, buildings used for money laundering, smuggling. They're using construction sites as cover. Yes, and when this breaks open, we'll need someone who understands that world. Someone who can help us secure against people who think like they do. Jack picked up the contract again, reading a clause about private schooling for Tommy through college. Education, healthcare, a future secure from want. Everything Sarah had dreamed of giving their son. I'd need training, he said slowly. Already arranged, the best in the business. But you have instincts that can't be taught. Robert smiled. Emily calls you the builder who saves people. She's not wrong. A knock at the door interrupted them. Anderson entered, his usual military precision softened by obvious respect. Sir, that analysis you requested on the structural vulnerabilities. Ah, yes, Robert gestured to Jack. Why don't you run it by Jack first? Get his perspective. Anderson didn't hesitate, spreading blueprints across the desk. We're particularly concerned about these access points. Jack found himself automatically engaging, pointing out things the security team hadn't considered, load-bearing walls that could be reinforced, maintenance schedules that created patterns someone could exploit, alternative entry points that only a builder would recognize. See, Robert said quietly, this is what we need, someone who bridges both worlds. The words echoed the children's drawing, still displayed proudly in the library. 2 houses, 2 families, becoming something new together. The board won't object, Jack asked, to having a construction worker in senior management? The board works for me, not the other way around. Besides, Robert's eyes hardened slightly. After what happened to Emily, they don't question my security decisions, ever. Jack thought of his old life. The satisfaction of building things with his hands, the simplicity of knowing exactly what each day would bring. But he thought too of Emily's kidnapping, of the sophisticated operation behind it, of other children who might need protection. I'd want to stay hands-on, he said, not just pushing papers. I'm counting on it. We need someone who's not afraid to get their hands dirty, who understands security from the foundation up. Robert pulled out a pen. The contract's negotiable. Any terms you want to adjust? Jack held up a hand. First, I need to talk to Tommy. This affects his life, too. Robert nodded, understanding in his eyes. Of course. Family first. Always. Looking down at the contract one more time, Jack saw beyond the legal language to what it really offered. Not just security for his son, but a chance to protect others, to build safety instead of just buildings, to turn the skills of his old life into something new. "I'll let you know tomorrow," he said, but in his heart he already knew his answer. Sometimes the best way to honor your past was to build a different future. The police file landed on Jack's new desk with a dull thud, its edges worn from years of frustrated investigations. Detective Martinez watched as he opened it, her face grim. "The FBI cleared you for this level of access," she said. "Given your new position with Blackwood Technologies, you need to understand what we're dealing with." The first page held Emily's original missing persons report. 6 years old, last seen leaving ballet class. The security camera still frame showed her tiny figure in a pink leotard, holding her mother's old music box. A birthday gift from Robert that she'd taken to dance practice that day. "We thought it was about ransom at first," Martinez continued. "Blackwood was an obvious target, but they never asked for money." Jack turned pages, absorbing details that turned his stomach. The kidnappers had used construction sites as safe houses, moving Emily through a network of half-finished buildings. Professional crews working in plain sight, hiding behind legitimate contracts and building permits. They had someone inside. "Blackwood Technologies," he said, spotting the pattern in work orders and site access logs. Martinez nodded. "High enough up to know about Robert's projects, his security protocols. They didn't just want money, they wanted access to his technology, his research, through Emily, through his desperation to find her." Martinez pulled out a document marked classified. They were playing a long game. Every few months, they'd leak a clue pointing to one of Robert's competitors. He'd acquire the company, hoping to find Emily. Instead, they were using him to consolidate their holdings, Jack finished, getting him to buy up companies they needed. Exactly. But Emily was smart. She watched. She listened. That backpack she took, it wasn't just random papers. She specifically grabbed files she'd heard them talking about. Jack studied crime scene photos, blueprints, witness statements that led nowhere. The kidnappers had used construction knowledge not just to hide, but to obscure. They understood how to make a building swallow secrets. "Here's what bothers me," he said, pointing to a detail about the day Emily disappeared. "The ballet studio's security system failed exactly 3 minutes before they took her. Not disabled, failed. Like the building itself was working against her." Martinez leaned forward. "What are you thinking?" "Construction crews have access to everything: electrical, security, structural plans. If they had someone inside Blackwood Technologies, and they were using building sites," he spread out the blueprints. "They weren't just hiding in these buildings, they were designing them, creating spaces specifically for their operation. Like the Riverside building, where you found Emily. A century-old structure with a crumbling ledge, perfect for making an escape attempt look like an accident." The implications chilled him. How many other buildings in the city had been designed or modified to serve their purposes? How many other children might have been hidden behind walls meant to protect? A new photo slipped from the file. Emily's music box, found smashed at the ballet studio. The kidnappers had destroyed it that first day, a message to Robert about what else they could break. "Jack." Martinez's voice was quiet. "There's something else you need to see." She pulled up a tablet, showing security footage from a construction site 2 days ago. Men in work clothes, moving with military precision, loading equipment into a concrete foundation before it was poured. "They're still out there," she said, "still building, and now they're desperate. The papers Emily took, they're not just about past operations. They're about something bigger, something they're planning. Have you told Robert? The FBI is briefing him now, but Jack," she met his eyes, "you know buildings. You know how to read them, how to spot what's wrong. We need you on this, really on this." Jack thought of the contract in his desk drawer, still unsigned. He'd taken the job to protect his family, to build a better future, but the past wasn't finished with them yet. Through his window, he could see Emily and Tommy in their garden classroom, heads bent over books. Safe, for now, But somewhere in the city, behind walls and foundations he might have helped build, other children might not be so fortunate. "What do you need me to do?" he asked. Martinez smiled grimly, pulling out more files. "Help us tear down what they built before they can finish what they started." The hospital bracelet was impossibly small around Tommy's wrist. Foster, Thomas J., age 9, printed in stark black letters against white plastic. Jack couldn't stop staring at it as his son slept, the steady beep of monitors counting out precious heartbeats. "The doctors say he'll be fine," Robert said softly, from the doorway. The allergic reaction was severe, but they caught it in time. They knew. Jack's voice was raw. They knew he had a peanut allergy. His school records were supposed to be sealed. The private school's kitchen had been thoroughly vetted, every staff member extensively background checked. But somehow, peanut oil had found its way into Tommy's lunch. One bite was all it took. Emily sat curled in a chair on the other side of Tommy's bed, refusing to leave. She'd been the one to notice something was wrong during their lunch break, had screamed for help. When Tommy's breathing became labored, now she watched him with fierce protectiveness, dark circles under her eyes. "I should have tasted it first," she whispered, "like they made me do." The words hung heavy in the private hospital room. Another glimpse into the horrors she'd endured, wrapped in a child's attempt to protect her friend. "This isn't your fault, sweetheart," Jack said, but Emily shook her head. "They hurt him because of me, because I took the papers." Robert moved to his daughter's side, but she flinched away. The progress they'd made, the trust they'd built, Jack could see it cracking under the weight of guilt. "The FBI found the supplier," Anderson reported from his position by the door. "Kitchen staff member was paid to look the other way. We have security footage." Jack's hands clenched. "Let me see it." "Jack," Robert started. "Let me see it." Anderson handed over his tablet. The footage showed a delivery man, face carefully turned away from cameras, dropping off supplies. A kitchen worker checking her phone, deliberately not watching as something was added to a container. "The worker's talking," Anderson continued. "Says she was just told to ignore the delivery, that it was a corporate taste test. Claims she didn't know about the peanut oil. But they knew." Jack's voice was deadly quiet. "They knew exactly which container would go into Tommy's lunch." Emily made a small sound, drawing her knees tighter to her chest. The hospital bracelet on Tommy's wrist caught the fluorescent light, a plastic reminder of how close they'd come to tragedy. "I'm pulling him out," Jack said. "Jack, wait." "No." He stood, years of construction work, making him tower over even. "Robert, my son is lying in a hospital bed because I tried to give him normal, because I thought we could balance safety and routine. I was wrong." "Dad?" Tommy's voice was weak, but it cut through the tension like a knife. Jack was instantly at his side. "Hey, buddy, how are you feeling?" "Tired." Tommy's eyes found Emily. "You stayed." She uncurled slightly, reaching for his hand. "I had to make sure you were okay. Did you get to finish your history test?" The simple question, so normal, so Tommy, made Jack's throat tight. Even now his son was thinking of others, trying to maintain the ordinary in the extraordinary. "Mr. Blackwood?" Tommy turned to Robert. "Can Emily still come over to study, even if I'm not at school?" "Oh, honey," Robert started, but Emily interrupted. "I want to stay home too." She looked at her father. "I don't want to go back. Not if it means they'll hurt Tommy again." The adults exchanged glances over the children's heads. Homeschooling had always been an option, but they'd resisted, wanting to give the kids some semblance of regular life. Now that illusion had nearly cost them everything. "We'll figure something out," Robert said. "Something safe." "The bunker classroom," Anderson suggested. "We can convert it, bring in the best tutors, total security." Jack watched Tommy and Emily, heads close together, as they whispered about missed assignments and future study plans. They'd found ways to build friendship in captivity. Maybe they could build education in safety too. The hospital bracelet caught his eye again. Such a small thing, but it had changed everything. No more half measures, No more compromises with normalcy. I'm signing the contract, he told Robert. Full-time, whatever you need, but I want to oversee all the security modifications myself, every inch of the compound. Robert nodded, understanding. We'll build it together. Make it a real home, not just a fortress. Emily lifted her head. With a bigger garden for science class? And a telescope platform? Tommy added hopefully. Jack managed a smile. We'll build it all, safe and strong. Outside the hospital room, Anderson's team maintained their vigilant watch. Somewhere in the city, people who would hurt a child to send a message were waiting, planning. But in here, 2 kids were already dreaming up their new classroom, turning fear into possibility. Jack touched the hospital bracelet gently. They'd tried to use his son's vulnerability as a weapon. Instead, they'd only strengthened his resolve to build something they couldn't break. The keys felt heavier than they should in Jack's palm. 3 simple pieces of metal that represented so much more. The main house key was titanium, virtually unpickable. The second opened a series of interior security doors. The third, the one that interested Tommy most, accessed their new underground bunker-turned classroom. It's like a secret base, Tommy whispered, watching the moving trucks pass through layers of security. His recovery had been quick, but Jack noticed how his son now checked every meal carefully, a new wariness in his young eyes. They stood in the courtyard of their new safe house. Compound felt too cold. Home, not quite accurate yet. The building rose before them, a masterpiece of hidden security. Jack had overseen every modification himself, pouring his construction expertise into making it both impenetrable and livable. The gardens will be better here, Emily said, her hand finding Tommy's. More sun. She'd been quiet since the hospital, but the prospect of replanting their study projects had brought a spark back to her eyes. Robert joined them, his own set of keys glinting. Shall we do the tour? The main entrance used biometric scans, along with the keys, recording every entry and exit. Inside, the security features were camouflaged by careful design. Panic buttons disguised as light switches, reinforced walls hidden behind warm colors, and family photos. This is your wing, Robert said, leading them down a sunlit hallway. Complete privacy, but connected to the main security systems. Jack used his second key, and thick doors whispered open. The space beyond took his breath away. Robert had spared no expense in making their section of the house feel like a real home. Tommy's room was a junior astronomer's dream. A professional telescope mounted by the window, walls painted with constellations that glowed in the dark. The observatory platform will be done next week, Robert added, watching Tommy's eyes light up. Jack's suite was practical but comfortable, with monitors showing security feeds and a desk already set up for his new role. A photo of Sarah held pride of place, her smile watching over the space. And this, Robert used his own key on a wooden panel, revealing a hidden staircase, is the surprise. The bunker classroom took up most of the underground level, but it wasn't the cold, utilitarian space Jack had expected. Walls were lined with books and interactive displays. A state-of-the-art science lab occupied one corner, an art studio another. Windows seemed to look out on sunny gardens, though Jack knew they were sophisticated screens showing real-time views from above. It's beautiful, Emily breathed, taking in the reading nook filled with cushions and the piano waiting to be played. Safe and stimulating, Robert said. The tutors are vetted and ready whenever we are. Jack watched Tommy exploring the science lab, Emily gravitating toward the art supplies. They'd lost a normal school experience, but maybe they'd gained something. Else, a chance to learn and grow without fear. There's one more thing, Robert said quietly, leading Jack to a sealed door at the back of the classroom. The third key fit perfectly. Inside was a command center, screens showing every angle of the property, communications equipment, and a wall of data about the ongoing investigation. Your office, Robert explained. Anderson will help you get set up. Jack studied the security feeds, the files waiting to be reviewed. Somewhere in that data were the answers they needed, the keys to understanding who had taken Emily and why they were still coming after them. A burst of laughter drew his attention back to the main classroom. Tommy was showing Emily how to use the telescope's electronic controls, their heads bent together over the display. They'd made this move without complaint, these children who had already lost so much normal life. "We'll make it work," Robert said, following his gaze. "Not just survive here, really live." Jack gripped his keys, feeling the weight of responsibility they represented. "They're still out there, yes, but we're ready for them now, and we're together." Through the security feeds, Jack watched the moving trucks leave, passing through multiple checkpoints. The house's systems hummed around them, a symphony of protection he had helped compose. It wasn't the life he'd imagined for Tommy, but watching his son excitedly explain constellations to Emily, he saw moments of joy breaking through the shadows. "Together," he agreed, and locked the command center door. Jack sat in the command center, reviewing surveillance footage for the 10th time. Something was wrong. He could feel it in his bones, the way he used to sense when a building structure wasn't quite right. The cameras showed normal activity, perimeter guards at their posts, delivery trucks passing through security, gardeners tending the grounds. But there was a pattern emerging, subtle enough that the automated systems hadn't flagged it. "Anderson," he called over the comm, "pull up the logs for maintenance visits over the past month." Data scrolled across his screen. Plumbers, electricians, groundskeepers, all vetted, all cleared. But when he cross-referenced their work orders with building schematics, a chill ran down his spine. "They're mapping the infrastructure," he muttered. "Every service call, they're building a complete picture of our systems." A new alert flashed, motion sensors triggered in the East Wing. Jack switched camera views, expecting to see staff. Instead, the corridor was empty. No, not empty. The air vent cover was slightly askew. Anderson locked down the East Wing. Now! But the command system wasn't responding. On his screen, security feeds began switching off one by one. "They're already inside," he realized. "In the walls." Jack slammed the emergency alert, but nothing happened. No sirens, no automatic locks. They'd taken control of the building's systems. His phone buzzed. A text from Tommy. "Dad, the lights are weird in the classroom." Jack's heart stopped. The bunker classroom, underground, surrounded by maintenance tunnels, the perfect infiltration. "Point." He hit the direct line to Robert's office. "Get to the kids, now." Racing through corridors, Jack pieced it together. They'd used legitimate contractors to study the building's layout, probably planted their own people among the workers. Each maintenance call had been a chance to add something, alter something, like a virus slowly infiltrating a body. The lights flickered as primary power switched to backup systems. In the distance, he heard the thud of security doors engaging. But were they protecting the children or trapping them? Jack reached the classroom door just as the lights went out completely. Inside, he heard Tommy's voice. "Emily, stay behind me." The emergency lights cast everything in red shadows. Tommy and Emily stood by the telescope, his son positioning himself between Emily and the door. Robert burst in from the other entrance, Anderson's team behind him. "Status?" Jack demanded. "Communications are down," Anderson reported. "We're blind except for local sensors." A scraping sound came from above, movement in the air ducts. Jack's mind raced through the building plans. The ventilation system connected everything, and with power compromised. "The telescope platform," he said suddenly. "Tommy, what direction is it pointing?" "Northwest," Tommy answered without hesitation. "We were studying Jupiter's moons." Jack grabbed the telescope's controls, swinging it due east. The high-powered lens revealed what the security cameras couldn't. Figures on the roof of the adjacent building, communications equipment set up. "They're not trying to get in," he realized. "They're trying to get us to come out." Robert's phone crackled to life, the only working device in the building. A distorted voice filled the room. "Quite clever, Mr. Foster. But then, that's why. They hired you, isn't it? The builder who sees how things really work. Emily pressed closer to Tommy, her face pale but determined. What do you want? Robert demanded. The same thing we've always wanted, Mr. Blackwood. Access, your security protocols, your research data, your entire infrastructure. And now, thanks to your new head of security's modifications, we know exactly how to get them. Jack's mind raced. Every change he'd made, every system he'd installed, the backup servers, he breathed. If the building goes into full lockdown, everything transfers to the secure servers. They need us to trigger emergency protocols. Very good, the voice praised. You have 10 minutes to initiate evacuation procedures, or we start removing obstacles. Perhaps beginning with your son's classroom. The air supply down there is quite limited without power. Tommy grabbed Emily's hand. Dad, I have an idea. All eyes turned to him. In the red emergency lighting, Jack saw not fear in his son's face, but the same calculating look he got when solving complex math problems. The maintenance tunnels, Tommy continued. Emily and I explored them last week. There's something you need to see. The voice on the phone chuckled. 8 minutes now. Tick-tock. Jack met Robert's eyes, then looked at their children. Not cowering, but standing together, ready to fight in their own way. Show us, Jack said. The kidnapper's phone lay shattered on the command center desk, its screen still displaying the last message sent. Begin final sequence. The cracked glass reflected the emergency lights as Jack pieced together what the children had shown them. Here, Tommy pointed to a maintenance tunnel blueprint. Emily noticed it during our science project on air pressure. The tunnel network beneath the building was a maze, but the children had mapped it during their explorations, adventures that now seemed less like play and more like preparation. The old drainage system, Emily added softly. It's not on. They're blueprints. She was right. The original building plans showed a simpler network, but Jack had discovered additional tunnels during renovation. Instead of removing them, he'd converted them into a secondary evacuation route, a route that wasn't in any digital records. They think they know every way in and out, Anderson said, but they're working from outdated information. Robert studied the children's hand-drawn map with growing admiration. All those hours you spent down here, we were playing spy games, Tommy explained. Emily said it helped her feel braver, knowing all the escape routes. Jack checked his watch. 3 minutes until the kidnapper's deadline. The phone on the desk buzzed again. Another message from their hidden command post. Time's running out. Initiate evacuation or we start removing air supply. They're watching the main security systems, Jack said, waiting for us to trigger emergency protocols. But these old tunnels, he traced a path on the children's map. They run right under their position. Anderson's team was already gearing up. We can approach undetected, but we'll need a distraction. I can help with that. Tommy's voice was steady. My science project, the one about pressure systems. I kind of got carried away. Emily smiled for the first time since the crisis began. He built sensors everywhere. We know exactly how air moves through the whole building and how to make it look like we're losing air pressure in the classroom. Tommy finished. Jack stared at his son, seeing Sarah's quiet brilliance shining through. You can make them think their plan is working? Tommy nodded. Emily helped me calibrate everything. We can send false readings to the main system. Robert squeezed his daughter's shoulder. My little spy. I had to know every way out, she whispered. I promised myself never again. The phone buzzed. 2 minutes. Jack looked at Anderson. Get your team in position. Kids, show us exactly how to trigger your sensors. The next few minutes were precisely orchestrated chaos, while Tommy and Emily worked their science project magic, making it appear that pressure was dropping in the classroom. Anderson's team moved silently through the forgotten tunnels. Jack and Robert coordinated from the command center, watching through the few cameras still under their control. 30 seconds, the phone displayed. Tommy's sensor network performed perfectly. On the main systems, it looked like the classroom. was slowly being starved of air. Emergency protocols remained dormant, exactly what the kidnappers didn't want. "Time's up," came the message. "Remember, you forced our hand." Jack held his breath. Everything depended on their reaction to the false readings. The phone lit up with urgent messages. Air pressure dropping in target zone. "No evacuation protocols." Triggered. "They're calling our bluff. Increase pressure reduction." "They're buying it," Anderson whispered through the secure comm. "Teams in position." Jack watched the security feeds as figures moved on the adjacent building, adjusting equipment. They thought they were winning, thought their plan was working. "Now," he ordered. Anderson's teams burst from hidden exits, catching the kidnappers completely off guard. At the same time, Tommy's sensor network released its stored pressure in a carefully controlled burst, creating confusion on the roof. "Federal agents." Martinez's voice cut through the chaos. She'd been waiting with backup, coordinating with Anderson. "Drop your weapons!" Through the command center windows, Jack watched the takedown unfold. The kidnappers' careful planning crumbled in the face of children's curiosity and a father's determination to protect his own. The leader, a former Blackwood Technologies security chief, was still clutching his phone when they brought him in. The device contained everything: proof of his involvement in Emily's kidnapping, connections to larger criminal enterprises, and plans for using the company's technology for international industrial espionage. "You really thought you could use my own building against me?" Robert asked him quietly. The man's face twisted. "We spent 3 years laying the groundwork, every maintenance call, every repair. We owned this place." "No," Emily's voice rang out. She stood in the doorway with Tommy, both children watching their former tormentor with unflinching eyes. "You never owned anything. You just hid in other people's buildings because you couldn't build anything yourself." Jack felt fierce pride as his son took Emily's hand. The kidnapper's phone continued to buzz with messages from other members of his organization, but they were already being traced and arrested. The network was unraveling. "Dad," Tommy asked, "can we go back to our classroom now? We still have that astronomy test tomorrow." Jack laughed, relief and love mixing in his chest. "Yeah, buddy, I think it's safe now." As Anderson's team led the prisoners away, Jack picked up the kidnapper's phone, their final artifact of fear. Tomorrow it would be evidence, but tonight it was just a broken piece of technology, powerless against the strength of two families who had learned to build something stronger than walls. The court documents were impressively thick, hundreds of pages detailing the full scope of what the FBI had uncovered. Jack read the summary again, still struggling to absorb the magnitude of the operation they'd helped bring down. 23 indictments, Martinez said, highlighting key sections. Not just Emily's kidnapping, but a whole network of corporate espionage, technology theft, and worse. They'd been using construction projects as cover for years. The charges painted a devastating picture. Shell companies, compromised building, contracts, security systems designed to fail. Emily's kidnapping had been just one part of a larger scheme to infiltrate and control major technology firms. And it all unraveled because a little girl was brave enough to grab the right papers, Martinez added, and a construction worker was brave enough to save her. Jack closed the file, thinking of the testimony Emily had given. Clear, precise, delivered via video link with Tommy holding her hand just off camera. She'd remembered everything. Conversations overheard, documents glimpsed, the patterns of her captor's movements. 3 years of fear transformed into evidence. "The plea deals are coming in," Robert said from the doorway. He looked lighter somehow, as if justice had lifted a physical weight. "They're all turning on each other, trying to avoid maximum sentences." The courtroom sketches attached to the documents showed the former Blackwood Technologies security chief, his arrogance finally broken. He'd been the inside man, the one who had suggested using Emily as leverage. Now he was facing life in prison. "What about the others?" Jack asked. "The ones who helped with Tommy's attack?" The kitchen worker gave up her contacts, Martinez assured him. We're closing in on the entire chain of command. No one's getting away this time. Through the window of Robert's home office, Jack could see the children in their classroom garden. They'd expanded it after the attack, turning the entire south lawn into an educational space. Today they were working with their science tutor, conducting experiments with the plants they'd grown. They're really going to be safe now? Jack needed to hear it again. The organization's completely dismantled, Martinez confirmed. And the evidence Emily preserved? She tapped the court documents. It exposed vulnerabilities in construction and security protocols across the industry. Companies everywhere are overhauling their systems. You've already started implementing the new standards at Blackwood Technologies. Robert smiled. Jack's making our buildings impenetrable the right way, not with fear, but with understanding. The legal papers detailed Jack's role too. His expertise had helped prosecutors understand how the criminals had exploited construction projects, leading to additional charges and stricter industry oversight. What had started as a father protecting his son had grown into something larger. "Dad!" Tommy's voice carried through the open window. "Come see what we grew." "Duty calls," Jack said, but Martinez held up a hand. "One more thing." She pulled out a final document. "The FBI's official commendation for both children. We'd like to present it at a private ceremony whenever Emily feels ready." Robert's eyes softened. "She's been asking about having a small party, just family and a few trusted friends. Maybe a celebration of moving forward," Jack suggested. "Exactly." Another call from the garden. "Dad, the tomatoes are purple." Jack laughed. "Purple tomatoes?" "Emily's idea," Robert explained. "They've been studying genetic modification. Apparently regular tomatoes were boring." The court documents sat finished on the desk, their pages containing both an ending and a beginning. The criminal organization was shattered, its members facing justice. But the changes they'd sparked in industry standards, in security practices, in two families, were just beginning. Speaking of celebrations, Martinez gathered her files. "I hear there's a telescope platform opening ceremony tomorrow?" "Tommy's been counting down the days," Jack confirmed. "He's prepared a whole presentation on Jupiter's moons. And Emily's doing the art installation." Robert added proudly. "She's designed constellations that tell their story." Their story. Not just the drama of kidnapping and rescue, but the quiet triumph of what came after, of two families who had built something stronger than fear. Martinez left them with the commendation papers and ceremony details. Through the window they watched Tommy explaining something excitedly to his tutor, while Emily sketched in her notebook, probably designing more botanical experiments. "We did it," Robert said quietly. "Not just caught them, but really did it. Built something good out of all of this." Jack thought of the court documents, filled with evidence of darkness and corruption. But here in the sunlight, watching their children learn and grow without fear, he saw the stronger truth. "We're still building," he said, and went to see about those purple tomatoes. The photograph captured a moment of pure joy. Emily and Tommy center stage at the Blackwood Foundation's first Children's Safety Initiative Gala, their science fair project on display behind them. They were both laughing, caught mid-explanation of their innovative building security system, designed by kids for kids. Robert and Jack stood proudly in the background, watching their children shine. "I still can't believe they won first place," Tommy said, studying the photo now displayed prominently in their shared classroom. "Against high school students." "Because we know how kids really think about safety," Emily replied, putting the finishing touches on their next project proposal. She'd come so far from the frightened girl on the ledge, still cautious, but with a quiet confidence that grew stronger each day. The gala had been her idea, actually. After receiving the FBI commendation, she'd asked her father, "Can we help other kids be safe too?" The Blackwood Foundation's new initiative was the result, funding for child-focused security innovations in schools, community centers, and public spaces. "Your mom would be so proud," Jack told Tommy, touching Sarah's photo on his desk. "Both of you." The classroom had evolved with them over the past 3 months. The children's original garden now supplied produce to local shelters. Their telescope platform had become a weekly gathering spot for a young astronomers club. Even their security innovations were being implemented in schools across the country. "Mr. Anderson says we should patent our warning system," Tommy said excitedly. "He thinks every school could use it." The system was brilliantly simple, born from their experiences. Tommy's understanding of pressure dynamics and Emily's insights into how kids think had created something unique. A network that could identify unusual patterns in building access without making children feel trapped or afraid. "The Foundation's lawyers are already working on it," Robert said, entering with a tablet displaying their latest success. 3 more schools have signed up for pilot programs. Emily looked up from her sketches. "Did they like the hidden passages? The safe ones, I mean." "They loved them. Your idea of emergency routes disguised as adventure spaces." "Brilliant." Jack watched Emily's face light up at the praise. She turned her worst experiences into something positive, insisting that safety features shouldn't feel scary to children. "Kids need to feel brave," she'd explained during their presentation. "Not afraid." The Foundation photo had captured that transformation perfectly. In it, Emily stood straight and tall, gesturing to their project display with the confidence of someone who understood her own worth. Tommy was mid-demonstration of their prototype, his natural enthusiasm for teaching shining through. "Dad?" Tommy pointed to his latest calculations. "I think I figured out how to adapt the system for hospitals. You know, for kids who have to stay there a long time." Jack felt his throat tighten, remembering long days in hospitals with Sarah. That's a wonderful idea, buddy." Emily helped with the design. "We made it look like a space station, with the security monitors disguised as star maps." Robert crossed to his daughter's workstation, examining her drawings. "Is this the new garden layout?" Emily nodded. "For the children's wing at Metro Hospital." Tommy said. "He said sometimes kids there feel trapped, so I designed it so they can see the stars from their beds." The Foundation photograph seemed to glow in the afternoon light, a testament to how far they'd all come. Jack remembered taking it, how natural it had felt to stand beside Robert as their children presented their work. 2 families, once strangers, now seamlessly intertwined. "The news wants to do a follow-up story," Robert mentioned, "about the Foundation's work, the children's innovations. No pressure, but—" "Can we?" Emily asked softly. "Maybe it would help other kids feel brave." "Yeah," Tommy added, "and we could show them our new designs." Jack exchanged glances with Robert, seeing his own thoughts reflected. Their children weren't just surviving trauma, they were transforming it, using their experiences to light the way for others. The classroom security system hummed quietly, their own prototype working perfectly. Outside, the garden bloomed with plants chosen for both beauty and practical applications in their ongoing experiments. The telescope platform gleamed in the distance, ready for tonight's astronomy club meeting. "I think," Jack said carefully, "that sounds perfect." Robert picked up the Foundation photograph, smiling at the joy captured there. "You know, when I started this foundation, I thought it was about building walls, better security, stronger defenses. But that's not what makes kids feel safe," Emily finished. "It's about building bridges." Tommy grinned at her. "And secret passages. And telescope platforms," she added. "And family," Jack said quietly, watching these remarkable children who had taught them all so much about courage, resilience, and the true meaning of security. The Foundation photograph caught the late afternoon sun, 4 figures united in purpose and love, not just survivors, but builders of something new, a future where safety grew from wisdom, not fear, and strength came from connection rather than walls. The letter sat on Jack's desk in the command center, handwritten on the special paper Tommy and Emily had made in their latest science project, embedded with wildflower seeds that could be planted after reading. Emily's careful handwriting filled the page, each word chosen with deliberate thought. Dear Jack, tomorrow is 1 year since the ledge. Dad says anniversaries are for looking back, but I want to look forward too. I've been thinking about what to call you. You're not just Tommy's dad anymore, but hero feels too simple. You're the builder who saves people, but that's not all of it either. I remember everything about that day, the wind, the fear, the way the ledge felt under my feet, but mostly I remember your voice, how you talked to me like I was brave even. When I was terrified, you didn't just save my life, you showed me how to build a new one. Tommy says you taught him that sometimes the stars look brighter after dark clouds. I didn't understand that at first. In the basement where they kept me, I couldn't see stars at all. But now I know it's not just about what you can see, it's about what you can build. We built so much this year. A classroom where learning feels like an adventure. A garden that feeds people who need help. Security systems that make other kids feel strong instead of scared. But the biggest thing we built doesn't have walls or windows. It's family, isn't it? The kind that grows even after hard things happen. Dad smiles more now. Real smiles, the kind that reach his eyes. He says it's because he's not carrying the weight alone anymore. Tommy says that's what construction workers do, help carry heavy things together. I think he learned that from you. Remember when you found me reading under my bed last month? I was embarrassed, but you didn't tell me to come out. Instead, you helped me build that reading nook in my room. The one with the secret door and the starlights. You understood that sometimes feeling safe means having places that are just yours. I want you to know that I'm not afraid anymore. Not of the dark, not of bad people, not even of remembering. Because you and Tommy showed me that brave doesn't mean not being scared. It means building something good anyway. The flowers in this paper are forget-me-nots. Tommy helped me pick them. Because of their name, but also because they grow best when planted together. Like families, like us. Thank you for that day on the ledge. Thank you for every day after. Thank you for teaching me that the strongest buildings aren't the ones with the thickest walls, but the ones filled with the most love. Love, Emily P.S. Tommy says I should mention that technically, forget-me-nots are part of the Boraginaceae family, and their optimal growing conditions require specific soil pH levels. He's such a scientist. But he's right about them being stronger together. Jack carefully folded the letter, feeling the seeds embedded in its fibers. Through his office window, he could see Emily and Tommy in their garden, preparing the ground for spring planting. Robert stood nearby, reviewing their latest design for a children's hospital security system that looked more like an enchanted forest than a fortress. The command center's screens showed their usual feeds, but they didn't feel oppressive anymore. The security measures had become like the forget-me-nots in Emily's letter, strongest when woven together, creating safety through connection rather than isolation. Tomorrow, they would mark the anniversary quietly, as a family. The children had planned a star-watching party on the telescope platform, combining Tommy's astronomy lessons with Emily's art. They would release paper lanterns carrying wildflower seeds, letting hope take root wherever they landed. Jack touched Sarah's photo on his desk, imagining what she would think of their expanded family, of the young scientist their son had become, of the healing they had all found together. The letter's seeds pressed against his fingers, promising new growth, new beginnings. Outside, Emily looked up from her gardening and waved. Tommy was explaining something enthusiastically, his hands tracing constellations in the air, while Robert added notes to their project plans. Just an ordinary moment, but one that would have seemed impossible a year ago. Jack carefully placed Emily's letter in the box, where he kept Tommy's first astronomy chart, Sarah's last Mother's Day card, and other treasures that marked lives. pivotal moments. Then he went to join his family in the garden, ready to build whatever came next. After all, that's what they did best. Build things together, under the same stars that had watched over them that day on the ledge, when two broken families had begun their journey toward becoming whole.